In the last 24 hours, President Donald Trump has warned that nuclear war probably will be the end of the world if we enter into World War III with everything that is going on around the world, and if we do not get control of what is taking place with all the conflicts right now. Now, I'm going to share with you the latest video footage, articles, and headlines because there has been a lot taking place today, March 10th, 2025, as I'm sure you're aware. There are threats that are being issued back and forth between Ukraine and Russia. Also, we have Iran as well that is combating with the United States over a potential nuclear deal. In addition to that, tariffs are being slapped around left and right around the globe between the United States, Canada, Mexico, China. We're hearing that things are going to be getting pretty turbulent here. And Donald Trump has come out and also said he is not backing out of the possibility that we could be entering into a severe economic recession here very soon. I'm going to play for you the video footage so you can see it for yourself. And also Elon Musk weighing in on things today as well, just in the past couple of hours. So today, you might have noticed the stock market has been tumbling. Bitcoin has been tumbling. Things have been very turbulent today, March the 10th, 2025. And I'm going to share with you the latest video footage, articles, headlines, so that way you can see it for yourself and know exactly what is taking place. So let's go ahead and take a look at the latest video footage and articles. Right now, President Trump warns monster nukes could end the world tomorrow when he is asked regarding what is the greatest threat right now. And he said, we have got to get a hold of these conflicts taking place around the world. Also, end of the world. Trump warns of nuclear dangers, criticizes specifically the Ukrainian aid, and talks tough on Russia. Trump invites Iran to nuclear talks. Now, this was a couple days ago. You can see this was March 7th, 3 days ago, as he said, nuclear talks or else, warning Iran that they need to come to some sort of an agreement here. Well, we had heard back in 24 hours that Iranian leaders, they had rejected Trump's push for nuclear talks. But coming out today, take a look at this. Iran signals openness to limited nuclear talks with the United States. So hopefully we're going to be able to see some sort of an agreement come to fruition here between the United States and Iran, trying to get that under wraps. But today it has been a turbulent day, as I mentioned. Take a look at this with me. Live updates coming out, just updated 23 minutes ago from the time of this recording. It's almost 7 p.m. Central Standard Time here in Houston, Texas. Markets have plunged after Trump's response to recession questions. Congress races towards a shutdown deadline as well. Now, Donald Trump said, I hate to predict things, but Trump does not rule out a U.S. recession amid trade tariffs. And we are hearing that the United States economy could be going in the wrong direction here with everything that is unfolding. And a lot of people are saying we are going to need some probably economic help here. We're going to see how things unfold. Now, regardless, I will keep you up to date every step of the way. And take a look at this. Ontario today, we're hearing, has slapped 25% tax increases on electricity exports to U.S. in response to Trump's trade war. And I shared with you the video footage that they said they would cut off the electricity. They reiterated that today, saying, we're going to tax 25%, but we're prepared to cut off all of our export imports going from Canada to the United States for electricity. We will shut it down. And we also heard that Trudeau has stepped down. The new Prime Minister of Canada has stepped in, and he said, we will fight the United States. He said, we will win. So there are a lot of trade war talks, a lot of warnings about nuclear war. There are tariffs taking place. The U.S. economy, the stock market is tumbling. There's a lot unfolding here. I'm going to get you caught up on the latest. I have got a lot of video footage for you today, so that way you can see exactly what is going on. And if you appreciate that, do me a favor. Before we dive in, take a quick second and hit that like button. Now, I know this is not the news that anybody wants to hear, but as you guys know here on the channel, I'm going to cite the sources, put it on the screen, read right from it, so that way you know that it is the latest information and you can be aware. I always say here on the channel, don't be scared, be prepared. We can't stick our heads in the sand and pretend like we're not aware of what's taking place. We need to know what's going on so that way we can take the necessary steps to protect ourselves and our families. And if you appreciate that, again, just take one quick second, hit that like button for me. Subscribe to stay up to date. It's totally free. Why not? I'll keep you up to speed on everything so you know exactly what is taking place. And also share this out and consider joining the newsletter at www.steveramnews.com. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get right to it. And yes, I see Gail saying hit the like button for the Ram fam. I appreciate it. Bear Larson is saying it is rapture time. Ill got beats, says laughing out loud, Canada win against the U.S. That's hilarious. Yeah, let me know your thoughts. Who do you think is going to come out on top with the threats between the United States and Canada? U.S., put a U.S., Canada, put Canada. But there is a lot taking place. So let me go ahead, though, and get you caught up on the latest. Let's dive into video footage. I've got a lot of footage that has come out in the last 24 hours to get you caught up on. First, let's start off with Trump's warnings. He's going to be discussing what he says is probably the end of the world as he warns of the dangers that are posed by nuclear weapons right now. So let's go ahead and take a look so that way you can see it for yourself.
Let me go back to what happened in the Oval Office the other day. I call it a smackdown of Zelensky. It looked really rough, but then again, at the end of the day, you may have your deal back. So was that all the art of the deal? What specifically ticked you off?
Well, you know, he was able to, it was like taking candy from a baby, what he did. He's a smart guy, and he's a tough guy. And he took money out of this country under Biden like candy from a baby. It was so easy, with that same attitude. And I just don't think he's grateful. We gave him, in my opinion, $350 billion. Europe is in for $100 billion. We gave him $350 billion, and he's talking about the fact that they have fought, and there's a bravery because somebody has to use the weapons. But without those weapons, don't forget, I was the one that gave him the javelins that was able to knock down all the tanks. Obama gave nothing. Look, if I were president, that would have never happened. You wouldn't have had Russia going into Ukraine. You wouldn't have had the whole situation with Hamas and October 7th. It would have never happened because Iran was broke. They had no money. They weren't giving it to Hamas or Hezbollah or anybody else. You would have never had the worst evacuation anyone's ever seen, which is Afghanistan, which was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country. And you know what else you wouldn't have had? You wouldn't have had inflation. We had record-setting inflation under Biden. It was a killer. It's one of the reasons I won the election.
But you may get it again with these tariffs, right? I mean, one CEO said to me, my input costs have already started to go up. Well, I'm going to have to raise prices.
In the meantime, guess what? Interest rates are down for the last 3-4 days at good levels. I mean, you know, when you add interest rates, you're talking about it's gone down. I've been saying, let's get interest rates down. You know, nobody ever gets rich when the interest rates are high because people can't borrow money. Interest rates are going down. You know what else is going down? What have I been trying to get down? Oil. Energy. Yeah. Energy's going down. I'd love to see energy go down. You know, energy is really what caused it. They screwed up my energy. I had the most energy, and they screwed it up. Then they went back to it. It was going through the roof. They went back to some drilling, but it was gone. It was hopeless. It was lost. But energy's gone down and interest rates have gone up over the last week. That's a big thing. I love that.
Do you expect Zelensky to come back? Do you expect to do that rare earth minerals deal?
Yeah, I think so. I think it'll happen.
Are you sure there's the content that you think there is there? Because some people were questioning if, in fact, there is the, you know, the titanium and the lithium, all those the rare earth minerals. Do you think it is rich with those things?
Well, I do. I mean, I've had it checked. By the best. It's very valuable. But with all that being said, Biden should have never put up $350 billion. He should have equalized with Europe. All he had to do is say, you got to stay even with us. They're in for 100. We're in for 350. How does that? And we have an ocean in between us, right? We're not in the danger that they are. They are in much greater danger, if you call it danger. He should have never done that. You know the other thing with Europe that bothers me? They've given Russia more money, by far, for buying their oil than they put into Ukraine. So they're paying all this money to Russia, and we're in there for $350 billion. Biden should have never done that.
I spoke with the president of Poland the other day. President Duda has great respect for you.
Yeah.
And I said to him, you know, what if the U.S. walks away and stays away? Here's what he said. Without the United States, do you believe that Europe is capable of offering meaningful security to Ukraine?
I would like to believe it, but experience to date shows that this has not been the case. The entire history so far of the last 3 years of the war shows that without American support, Ukraine will not survive.
Are you comfortable with that? The fact that you walked away and Ukraine may not survive?
Well, it may not survive anyway, but, you know, we have some weaknesses with Russia. You know, it takes two. Look, it was not going to happen, that war, and it happened. So now we're stuck with this mess. Think of what he stuck me with. Open borders where we have 21 million people came into our country, many of whom should not be here. Many are criminals. Many are criminals. Many murderers. Drug dealers, drug lords. We got that. We have the whole mess with Israel on October 7th. We have all of the ramifications from the worst and dumbest withdrawal in history.
Both Ukraine and Israel were both attacked by aggressors. Is America treating both countries similarly? Are they treating the aggressors similarly?
I think so. Look, they're very
different. Are you favoring
different.
one over the other?
They're very different places, okay? Very, very different. You're talking about different levels of power. You're talking about different parts of the world. The Middle East has been under attack forever. It's been, you look, when wasn't it under attack? And then we came along and did the Abraham Accords, which was unheard of.
Have you been as tough on Russia as you've been on Hamas? I mean, what do you want to say to critics?
Well, I've been much tougher because I haven't done to Hamas. That's been Israel that has to do to Hamas. But Israel does tell me what's going on. I think I've been very tough to Russia. Tougher than anybody's ever been to Russia, if you think about it. First of all, we had the Russia hoax, which was a very bad thing, could have led to a war. And that was started by Schiff and all these lowlifes.
I know.
They're total lowlifes. And it was a fake deal, the 51 intelligence agencies. It was, I took all their passes away. They can't participate anymore. These guys know it came from Hunter Biden's laptop from hell, which came from his bathroom and or his bedroom, okay? Not a pretty sight. But this was a Hunter Biden thing. They said it was from Russia. No, I've been very tough. Remember this, I'm the one that stopped the Russian pipeline, Nord Stream 2. I stopped it. Biden came in and he approved it. I'm the one that put sanctions on Russia. I'm the one that gave the javelins against Russia. No, I've been very tough, but I got along well with Putin. And because I got along well, they say, he's so... Nobody's ever been... Putin would be the first to say it. Nobody's been tougher than Trump. And Biden hasn't been tough. Biden's done nothing. He was a weak, pathetic man.
So is there anything else you want to say to the critics who say you chose a side in the Ukraine-Russia story, and that's Russia? Because, you know, you called Zelensky a dictator and you had the fight.
Nobody has been tougher on Russia than Donald Trump. Nobody. And they know that. They know that. Just look at the things I just told you. The pipeline, I stopped it. The biggest job they've ever done was the pipeline, Nord Stream 2. Nobody ever heard of it until I came along. They were building it happily. They were going to supply Germany and everybody else all over Europe. And what did I do? I stopped it. The biggest economic job they've ever had, I stopped it. Biden got in. On the second day, he approved it. He said, let it go forward. It was totally stopped. Just that one thing alone tells you everything. No, I was tough. At the same time, I got along with Putin. I got along with Kim Jong-un. I got along with President Xi. But nobody was tougher, like on China, than I was.
And then there are reports now that Russia says it will help the United States negotiate a nuclear deal with Iran. What kind of a deal with Iran do you want to do? You said they cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Yeah. Well, there are two ways Iran can be handled, militarily or you make a deal. I would prefer to make a deal, because I'm not looking to hurt Iran. They're great people. I know so many Iranians from this country.
Well, not the leadership.
No, not the leadership.
The people.
They're very evil people. No, but the people of Iran are great people. But they had a tough regime, and they'd meet and they'd be shot in the streets. I mean, it was a tough deal. But I would rather negotiate a deal I'm not sure that everybody agrees with me, but we can make a deal that would be just as good as if you won militarily. But the time is happening now. The time is coming up. Something's going to happen one way or the other. I hope that Iran, and I've written them a letter saying, I hope you're going to negotiate, because if we have to go in militarily, it's going to be a terrible thing for them.
You wrote a letter to the Khomeini?
Yes.
When did you send the letter?
Yesterday.
And you said you better negotiate, or we want you to negotiate?
I didn't say you better. I
Okay.
said, I hope you're going to negotiate, because it's going to be a lot better for Iran. And I think they want to get that letter. The other alternative is we have to do something, because you can't let them have a nuclear weapon.
You said you wanted to do the Golden Dome. You've got a lot of ideas for America. But then earlier you said you wanted to cut $1 trillion in defense spending, right?
I didn't say I was.
You're not going to. So I was like, which is it? Are you cutting defense spending, or are you building us up?
I never said defense spending.
Okay, because I think you were talking about denuclearization,
Correct.
and that's where the cutting of the spending came in.
I never said cut. No, it's not in these days. I'd love to cut defense spending, but not now, because you have China, you have Russia, you have a lot of problems out there. No.
In fact,
no. What I have said is, we spend a lot of money on nuclear missiles, nuclear weapons. The level of destruction is beyond anything you can even imagine. It's just bad that everybody has to spend all this money on something that, if it's used, it's probably the end of the world.
Wow. I don't know what to say to that.
You know, when I listen to these climate lunatics, and they talk about global warming, and they say the ocean's going to rise 1/8 of an inch in the next 300 years, and and nobody ever talks about nuclear weapons or some of the other things, but the nuclear weapons in particular right now. And they talk about the climate, and they talk about the dangers of the climate, but they don't talk about the dangers of a nuclear weapon, which could happen tomorrow. They say in 300 years, I watched Biden for years say the existential threat. He loved the term existential threat. Our greatest existential threat is from the climate. And I said, no. Well, the greatest is sitting in shelves in various countries called nuclear weapons that are big monsters that can blow your heads off for miles and miles and miles. And they never mention that.
There you have it, you guys. So that was Donald Trump, and this was an exclusive that was done in the last 24 hours, and he said nuclear weapons are the biggest threat to the world, more so than climate change. He said that this could pop off at any moment. This could happen today, and he said that this could probably be the end of the world, was the quote that he said. It probably would be the end, to which you saw Maria responded just saying, I just really don't know how to respond to that. And he said, this is a major concern right now. So right now, we had heard him talking about not just Ukraine and Russia, but also Iran, and saying we have got to get the nuclear situation under control right now. This would be the end of the world. This would be an all-out war. We would see Russia, the United States, the nuclear powers that could essentially put an end to everything. That's why we're seeing articles coming out like this today. You can see President Trump warns monster nukes could end the world tomorrow. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at this. It says President Trump has warned that monster nuclear weapons are the biggest threat to humanity and could easily end the world tomorrow. The commander-in-chief gave a grim warning as he lamented the dangers of stockpiling nukes amid his push to kickstart arms control talks with Russia and China. So he is saying, hey, we have got to get into these talks with our adversaries right now, because this is an existential threat. This is the primary concern. The greatest threat is sitting on shelves in various countries called nuclear weapons that are big monsters that can blow your heads off for miles and miles and miles, Trump said in his Sunday morning futures. Trump went on to lament the amount of money the United States, which has the second largest stockpile of nukes in the world behind Russia, has spent on its nuclear weapons program. We spent a lot of money of nuclear weapons. The level of destruction is beyond anything you could imagine, he said in the wide-ranging interview. It's just bad that you have to spend all this money on something that, if it's used, it's probably the end of the world. Trump also pushed back against the world leaders and politicians who have spent years claiming climate change is the posing of the biggest threat to humanity. I watched former President Joe Biden for years say the existential threat is from the climate, Trump said. I said no. They talk about the climate and they talk about the dangers of the climate because they don't talk about the dangers of nuclear weapons, which could happen tomorrow, he said. It comes after he recently warned that Russia has by far the most nukes in the world, but predicted that China, which has the third largest stockpile, will likely catch up within a decade. He stressed, too, that he wants to restart nuclear arms control talks with Russia and China, and that he eventually hopes the two countries, as well as the United States, could agree to cut their massive defense budgets in half. There's no reason for us to be building brand new nuclear weapons. We already have so many, Trump said last month. You could destroy the world 50 times over, 100 times over. And here we are building new nuclear weapons, and they're building nuclear weapons. He added that he would look to engage in nuclear talks with the two countries once we straightened it all out in the Middle East and in Ukraine. So again, Ukraine and the Middle East, we're hearing, is the major concern at this time. Now, speaking of which, I've got more video footage for you we're going to be covering right now, as we're going to be hearing that Iran has rejected talks with the United States. We had heard that Donald Trump had said, you need to come to the table and have talks, or else. Trump invited Iran's leader to nuclear talks, or else. Iran's leader rejected Trump's push for nuclear talks. Well, we're hearing today that Iran is signaling that they might now be open to limited nuclear talks with the United States. So this is one of the big concerns. Now, like I said, a lot coming out today. So let's cover the nuclear concerns involving Iran right now as well, with the latest coming out. This from Fox Live Now in the last 24 hours as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at this video footage so you can see it for yourself.
I do want to take a live look here at the White House, as Iran's supreme leader has now rejected President Trump's demand for talks relating to a nuclear deal. Now, we know that a letter was sent days ago. We hadn't heard any response from Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, but now we learned from his office that he is not willing to speak with President Trump over that nuclear deal. Still, a lot left to figure out here as we wait for President Trump's response to that response. We also know that Israel is going to send a negotiating team to Qatar tomorrow to continue efforts to extend the ceasefire hostage deal over in Gaza. As always, a lot to discuss out of the Middle East, so I do want to bring in Mark Chandler, Director of Government Relations and Professor of Practice at Coastal Carolina University, also a former Senior Defense Intelligence official. Thank you so much for taking the time, as always, to be here with us.
You're welcome, Josh, and good morning to you.
Good morning. Well, first off, I do want to talk about that rejection from Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, as it relates to President Trump's request or demand for some talks there for a nuclear deal. Now, we know that Trump did say just days ago that if Khamenei did not accept the request there for talks, that he could intervene militarily in Iran. So what do you make of all of that?
Well, first off, I think how Khamenei responded to this kind of gave a little bit of insight to what the Trump letter said. If you recall, he didn't disclose all the details, but obviously it was to stop the Iranian nuclear weapons development and program completely. And then also, I believe, because Khamenei said something about limiting missiles and limiting its engagements across the Middle East, it probably talked about Iranian missile development, because Iran has probably the largest, if not one of the largest, missile inventories in the world. And that's how that's what they'll use to deliver these nuclear weapons when they develop it. So I think you see a little bit of Trump probably pushing across all the levers, if you will. And remember, he still has his maximum pressure campaign implemented since he took office. So that's a lot of pressure on Khamenei. He spoke. This is a definite position that Iran is going to take because since Israel attacked them several months ago, they've been kind of, I don't want to say neutered completely, but they've been on less of a solid ground in pushing their Shia crescent across the Middle East. Now, if I can just talk about where they are in the nuclear weapons development, because it's important, because the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, the UN nuclear watchdog, if you will, just released a report that said Iran now has enough enriched uranium to make 6 nuclear bombs. That's up from 4 just a few months ago. They're at 60% enrichment. I don't want to make this a physics class, but they need about 3 weeks to have weapons-grade uranium to make into bombs. So that's a significant step. It shows they're still making progress as they work their way through. If the U.S. was to conduct a military campaign, and there are contingencies that I won't go into in detail, that would be an extensive campaign, an aerial bombardment across a lot of Iran, especially in the Esfahan and Natanz regions, where their deeply buried targets that are critical to the Iranian nuclear weapons program. So that would have to be an extensive series of airstrikes, whether they go by themselves or Israel cooperates in some way. But then there's a lot of other targets around the country that the U.S. would have to strike. Now, and a lot of those are not disclosed. So there's a lot of intelligence work to be done. Find all those targets that are in other military facilities or civilian facilities and take them out, such as one that wasn't widely reported when Israel struck back last year. They took out one building inside one complex in Iran that wasn't talked much about that actually was key to nuclear weapons development. So you've got an extensive campaign ahead. Hopefully they can come to some agreement that will actually stop Iranian nuclear weapons development, unlike the JCPOA under the Obama administration.
As we look here on the left-hand side of your screen, you see that live look over the northern Gaza Strip. We know that talks, as I mentioned, are going to resume tomorrow over in Qatar, as you have the delegations for Israel as well as the spokespersons for the Hamas terror group. They're meeting there to discuss what the next phase of the ceasefire deal is going to look like. We know there's been a lot of kind of back and forth over the last week or so since that did expire. Israel does want to remain in phase 1. Hamas wants to move on to phase 2. My question for you, are we any closer to an agreement here? What would an extension of phase 1 look like, and what would it look like if we moved into phase 2?
Well, Josh, that's a great question. And I think right now the fact that Israel is sending this team tomorrow to Doha, and let me point out, this is a significant team. This is the lead hostage negotiator for Israel, and it's some very senior Shin Bet officials. So you've got a senior delegation that's going to go talk to the Hamas mediators, and Hamas representatives. So I think what you're seeing is you're either going to see Israel say, okay, there's a little bit of an opening in here where we can maybe start talking about phase 2, or they're going to sit down and they're going to say, okay, here's the ultimatum. We need to extend phase 1. And to answer your question about what that looks like, that's just basically every week releasing 3 Israeli hostages for a requisite number of Palestinian prisoners, as they did the first 6 weeks. We're literally in limbo right now. We're not in phase 1, but we're not in phase 2. And so the fact that you've got 2 forces, both Hamas and the Israeli military, ready to fight at one another, and we know Hamas has been making preparations to do so, these talks need to go well to kind of hold off any kind of future attack. I also think with the senior level of this delegation, you're seeing a little bit of Israel starting to put itself back up at the forefront, especially after what the U.S. did earlier this week by talking to Hamas separately.
The Times of Israel posting this story here, I want to get your take on it, as they say that the Israel Strategic Affairs Minister, Ron Dermer, quote unquote, lashed out at the U.S. hostage envoy, Adam Boehler, about learning that he held direct talks with a senior Hamas delegation. What does it say that the U.S. held these, quote unquote, secret talks? And how does Israel feel about it? Because if that comment gives us any indication, they're not happy about it.
No, Israel is definitely not happy. And what I think you're seeing play out publicly now is, if you recall, the U.S. did say that they were talking to Hamas after it was revealed, and they did say Israel knew beforehand. That is not true. So I think what you're seeing is the U.S. kind of stepped on it a little bit by going, and actually the U.S. violated a decades-old policy to not negotiate with terrorist organizations. So you've got that as a backdrop. But the U.S. went in and they tried to separately negotiate, or at least move him to the front, the release of the remaining American hostages, 1 alive and 4 dead. And so you kind of see that. What this does, and I think Israel's got a legitimate concern here, is it allows Hamas to maybe work a seam between Israel and the United States in a negotiation, especially if the United States goes in and focuses on an American-only release, but not the broader aspects of security, the remaining hostages, and the ceasefire. So I think you could have a little bit of that. And today, playing this out a little bit, Hamas released a statement saying they enjoyed the talks with the United States. They appreciate the United States engagement to talk about elements of hostage release and something could be worked out. Having this come out right before the talks begin again tomorrow in Qatar, obviously is Hamas trying to exploit that seam. So we'll have to see how this plays out. But I think Israel's got a legitimate beef here with the United States.
And I was going to say, what does it say to you overall that Hamas would release that statement and say, you know, we enjoyed those talks with the U.S.? Is that kind of a dig at Israel to make them even angrier?
It absolutely is. You know, I don't want us to put the Israel-U.S. relations on any kind of bad footing as they were in the Biden administration, but this is kind of a public issue right now that needs to be worked through quickly. And the U.S. and Israel need to, you know, publicly come out and reaffirm that they are moving together with a joint vision on how the rest of the negotiations are going to go in the hostage release, or Hamas will continue to play these games.
Let's talk a little bit about the Houthis. We haven't really discussed them in a while here, but the Houthi terror group threatening Israel that it's going to resume its naval operations if Israel does not lift its block of aid into Gaza within a few days. I know at one point it was 4 days. I guess right now we might be down to 2 or 3 days. But what do you make of all of that overall? Can you explain why that is the case?
Well, you know, the Houthis, first off, no one's really bothered the Houthis since about January 10th, when the U.S., U.K., and Israel all conducted some serious strikes against the Houthi infrastructure. Now, so since the start of the ceasefire, the Houthis have said they will support the ceasefire. They will not do any attacks as long as the ceasefire is in place. And so last week, as Israel was saying, let's stay in phase one, and they began the blockade to try to force Hamas to stay in phase one and talk at the tables. I think the Houthis are now coming out on a threat. Also, you know, perhaps overlooked a little bit, the U.S. formally designated through State Department channels the Houthis as a foreign terrorist organization this week. So that now implements multiple sanctions on the Houthis, and it also starts to implement sanctions and pushback, not pushback, but retribution, if you will, if there's any third countries that are starting to deal with the Houthis now. This is much stronger than it ever was in the Biden administration. So you've got to see now the Houthis are playing out. Since they haven't been attacked, as I said, since January, what I would have to say is the Houthis have been consolidating their positions, consolidating what weapons they have, missiles, attack UAVs, and those attack unmanned boats. And so I know that they have several still left at their disposal. They can attack. They have attacked Israel before. They've actually killed some Israelis, caused damage. So I think if they decide, and you're right, 2 to 3 days now, if they follow through with this threat, they could quickly mount an attack that could go against Israel, and then, you know, some of the shipping into the Bab el-Mandeb Strait and the Red Sea. So you've got to look at that. Unless something happens, they can attack. It won't be as extensive as they were before, but they will be able to do it. Israel doesn't need that right now. Israel's focused with Hezbollah. They got that going. They've got Hamas. They're working on that. Israel can handle it. They just don't need this additional burden to start to have to deal with the Houthis again.
Yeah, as you mentioned, this is kind of the first time that we're talking about the Houthis in quite a while. Also, it's been fairly quiet with Hezbollah, so I did want to ask you kind of the latest developments there. That ceasefire, is it still intact?
Well, I think if we've got any really good news to work through, that ceasefire is intact. Now, as I've said before, it's not a complete cessation of hostilities. Hezbollah is still trying to do some things in southern Lebanon, work supplies in there. And when that's identified, Israel is either doing a preemptive strike on the terrorist cell that's doing something, or quickly counterstrike on that. The Lebanese army is stepping up. They're still not fully capable of everything. And Israel occupies about 5 key villages in southern Lebanon that actually were Hezbollah strongholds to attack into Israel. And until those can be secured, everybody has mutual agreement that Israel can stay there. So I think you're going to see that play out very well. And right now, that's probably the least of Israel's concerns out there.
All right. Mark Chandler there with Coastal Carolina University, a good friend of the show.
There you have it, you guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, as we're hearing that they're trying to work out some sort of an agreement. We've heard that there has been back and forth, and we're going to see, because as I mentioned just a couple of hours ago, we're now hearing that Iran is saying they're signaling that they might be open to some sort of nuclear deal or agreement. Donald Trump said you better do it or else. And do you think that Iran is going to come around and make a deal? Do you think the Trump effect is going to take place? If you think so, put 47 in the comments for Donald Trump and hit that like button if you think he's going to come through and persuade them to get on board with a deal of some kind for nuclear weapons. You heard him say that Iran can never, under any circumstances, have nuclear weapons. So he's trying to work out some sort of deal with them regarding their nuclear power, trying to get them away from potentially having weapons. If you think no, put no in the comments. Donald Trump's not going to come through. Iran is going to do whatever they want. Actually, don't put no, put 3 for World War III if you think that that is going to unfold. As you heard him say, that if nuclear weapons start getting launched, it's going to be the end of the world. And like I said, do me a favor, while you put in a 3 for World War III or a 47 for Donald Trump reaching an agreement with Iran, also hit that like button for me. And if this is your first time here, don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date. Now, you might have noticed that today things were a little bit chaotic, as we had heard that the stock market was tumbling, Bitcoin was falling, people were concerned, tariffs are being slapped back and forth. We're hearing that Canada has applied 25% tariffs to electricity coming in from Canada to the United States. We heard them yet again threaten to shut off electricity to parts of the United States coming in from Canada. Now, just to clarify, that would not shut down electricity to those actual homes or locations, but it would shut off the electricity exports, which they're saying would make electricity utilities available in the United States more expensive. And we actually heard a warning. I saw a report that said what they're doing right now might make it so that way households might have to pay in certain areas that depend on Canadian imported electricity about $100 extra per month for electrical services. Now, let's go ahead and take a look so you can see this, and a lot of this happening, unfolding, the stock market tumbling today, March 10th, 2025, as Donald Trump said he would also not rule out the possibility of us going into some turbulent economic times. He said, not ruling out the possibility that 2025 we could be entering into a recession. Do you think that we're going to be entering into a recession right now? If you think so, put yes. If you think no, put no. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, but let's take a look at this video footage so you can see it for yourself.
All right, welcome back in here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andy Mack. Earlier today, in an interview on Fox News, President Trump downplayed economic concerns, calling this, quote, a period of transition. This a post from the Wall Street Journal saying President Trump declined to rule out that the U.S. economy would enter a recession, saying that his sweeping economic agenda could cause short-term turbulence that he believed would drive future prosperity. Let's take you out to this segment earlier today on Fox News.
You inherited a mess, and you said that the other
I've only
night.
been here,
But are you expecting a recession this year?
I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition because what we're doing is very big. We're bringing wealth back to America. That's a big thing. And there are always periods of, it takes a little time. It takes a little time. But I think it should be great for us. I mean, I think it should be great. It's going to be great ultimately for the farmer. You know, don't forget, I made the deal with China on the farmers where they had to buy $50 billion worth of product. $50 billion from 15 to 50.
Did they
and it was
follow
great.
up and do it?
They did it when I was president. What happened is when Biden was president, they didn't buy any longer. Yeah, because there was nobody to call him. I used to call President Xi. I said, you got to do me a favor. You got to, live up to that agreement. And he was great. He did.
Before you came into the Oval Office the first time, you were a very successful businessman, very successful real estate executive. And a lot of people said, oh, this is the business president. This is it. He's watching the stock market. He knows all about, he doesn't want the market to go down. And now we've got tariffs and the market has been going down.
Well, not much. I mean, in all fairness.
You said, look, we're going to have a disruption, but we're okay with that. Is that what you meant? The stock market going down was the disruption? What other disruption were you alluding to?
Look, what I have to do is build a strong country. You can't really watch the stock market. If you look at China, they have a 100-year perspective. We have a quarter. We go by quarters.
That's true.
And you can't go by that. You have to do what's right. What we're doing is we're building a tremendous foundation for the future. Tremendous foundation. Everything's been taken away. We don't make ships anymore. We don't, you just saw one of the biggest shipbuilders in the world, one of the biggest shipping people in the whole world.
In the Oval Office with you.
In the Oval Office. He's announcing a $20 billion investment in the United States, which he would have never done except for this. But look at this. Honda, Toyota, they're all coming in. You take a look at what's happening. The chip maker, the greatest chipper, Mr. Wei, the biggest in the world by far, is going to spend $200 billion on making a massive plant to make chips.
So that's your message? Build it here?
Build it here. There's no tariff.
Yeah. The public companies want to make sure that we have clarity. After April 2nd, when those reciprocal tariffs go in, is that it? Are you going to change anything after that? Will we have clarity?
You'll have a lot, but we may go up with some tariffs. It depends. We may go up. I don't think we'll go down, but we may go up. But they have plenty of clarity. They just use that. That's like almost a soundbite. They always say that. We want clarity. Look, our country's been ripped off for many decades. For many, many decades. And we're not going to be ripped off anymore.
On the tariffs, what are the automakers going to do for a month? I mean, you say you wanted to help American automakers. Yeah, I did. You spoke with the three.
It's a transition period.
Okay.
And it's a transition into April. And after that, I'm not doing this. I mean, I told them, I said, look, I'm going to do it this one time, but after that, I'm not doing it. They called me and they wanted help during this little transition period, and I gave it to them.
All right, you're just listening in there to President Trump earlier today on Fox News, continuing to tout prosperity despite some of these disturbances, these turbulence. And I also mentioned the stock market. So many going to be paying attention to that with tariffs, but also an upcoming potential partial government shutdown, the deadline for that on Friday. So we're following that very closely. You're on Live Now from Fox. A post from Bloomberg about what President Trump said, talking about the U.S. economy, saying it faces, quote, a period of transition, deflecting concerns about the risk of a U.S. slowdown as his early focus is on tariffs and federal job cuts. They caused the market turmoil.
There you have it, you guys. So like I said, today we have seen a lot of that turbulence and turmoil as the stock market went tumbling down, and that is after we had heard Donald Trump say that he was not going to be ruling out a recession. And you heard him say that there might be some turbulence, but wasn't going to be a big deal, that we're going to pull through it. Well, also, in the past couple of hours, we've heard from Elon Musk, who has exposed why the Democrats don't want DOGE in place. And he is saying that they don't want to have exposed the massive waste and fraud that is taking place. Let me know your thoughts on this. And again, if you are glad that Elon Musk, DOGE, Donald Trump, they are in office right now and they are doing all the things that they are doing, drop a 47 in the comments, hit the like button, subscribe to stay up to date. Let me know your thoughts on this. And also, are you looking forward to that DOGE dividend check that we've been hearing so much about? I did an update for you yesterday, and it is wild. From the time they announced it, I think it was like February 19th or 20th, seems like every single day has been building, and it looks like it is going in the direction that pretty soon here we're going to have coming into fruition a tangible line item in the budget bill that is a DOGE dividend, 20% return of all clawbacks from DOGE to the American people. Do you like the sound of that? If so, drop those 47s in the comments. Let me know your thoughts as we're hearing that there is a lot going on. So we heard from Donald Trump. Now we're going to be hearing from Elon Musk. And like I said, right now they're saying there is massive potential threats to our economy, existential threats to our world with all the wars that are going on. So a lot taking place today, March 10th, 2025. Let me play some more video footage for you. And like I said, if you haven't done so yet, hit that like button if you appreciate the updates.
All right, we welcome to the show and a special interview with Mr. Elon Musk, who, of course, is famed Trump advisor, CEO of Tesla, SpaceX, chair of X Corp. Elon, thank you for doing this. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
I want to begin, but among other things, everyone's attacking you for your position. What are you doing in the government? There was a cyber attack on X today, which shut it down and may have been foreign sourced.
Yes.
It's a big story. You want to give us a moment on that?
Well, we're not sure exactly what happened, but there was a massive cyber attack to try to bring down the X system with IP addresses originating in the Ukraine area.
Oh, well, so that's your suspicion. Is the website, is the internet up? Is it up yet?
It's up, yeah.
It's up yet. Okay, good. But I just was looking back. Let me just see if I get this right. They're setting fire to various Tesla charging stations near Boston. Shots were fired at a Tesla dealership in Oregon. Various nonviolent...
Shots fired, not a metaphor.
Shots fired, yes. Downtown New York, marching against the Tesla showroom. Your stock is way down. You've been criticized left and right.
But look on the bright side.
I mean, why are you doing this?
Always look on the bright side of life.
Yes. I'm an optimist.
Yeah. But besides that,
yes. I mean,
how's your day?
What motivates you to do this?
Was the opera good?
It's tough sledding.
Yeah, it is tough sledding. But I think we're doing the right thing here. There's been a tremendous amount of waste and fraud in the government. When you're part of the government, you saw a lot of that, and there's been. If you look at the Inspector General reports and the Government Accountability Office, there have been many audits that have pointed out that there's a tremendous amount of waste and fraud in the government. In fact, there was a report issued by the GAO, the Government Accountability Office, last year. So during the Biden administration, which estimated the federal government fraud to be $500 billion. Mm. So just to be clear, that's not a Trump administration thing, that's a Biden administration thing. So what we're trying to do is get that number down to a much smaller figure, save money for the American taxpayer, stop money being spent on things that I think very few taxpayers would agree make sense. Transgender animal surgeries, or why are we spending money? Why are American tax dollars being spent on this? The president's gone through a long list of absurd things. Why are the 20 million people who are definitely dead marked as alive in the Social Security database? Why were hundreds of millions of dollars of Small Business Administration loans were given out to people aged 11 and under, according to the Social Security? I mean, these must be some very enterprising 8-year-olds,
And some pretty strong 150-year-olds.
Yes, exactly. As the president said, we have an enormous number of people marked as alive who are 160. He didn't know the country was that healthy.
Yes. So demystify this. How do you do it? Okay. How big is your team?
Yeah.
Where'd you recruit most of them from? And what is it that makes you choose, the Treasury or Social Security or USAID? How does it work? Let the public know, please.
Right. Well, we just basically follow the money. We look at the president's executive orders, and we also just follow the money. So we started looking closely at USAID because they were completely violating the president's executive orders to suspend foreign aid, what's called foreign aid, but in our view is a lot of corruption. So what we saw there is just a tremendous amount of money being sent to non-governmental organizations. But actually, this, by the way, is I think one of the biggest sources of fraud in the world is government-funded non-governmental organizations. This is a gigantic fraud loophole where the government can give money to an NGO. And then there are no controls over that NGO. So they've given billions of dollars, in fact, we estimate tens of billions of dollars to NGOs that are essentially scams. Mm-hmm. By the way, I'm trying to put a stop to that. So
I don't want to interrupt, but Secretary of State Rubio just come out, I think he tweeted today, he has accepted over 80% of your recommendations to shut down in USAID.
Right.
So your review and analysis was spot on.
Yes. So I think when people criticize, say, what DOGE is doing, we say, well, which part specifically? Because we put all of the actions of the DOGE team on the doge.gov website and on the DOGE handle on X. So we post the receipts. So it's like this action has been taken, this action has been taken. So when we get criticism, we say, like, of what? Which line do you disagree with? Like which cost saving do you disagree with? And then people usually can't think of any.
No.
You know, so
it's transparent line by line.
It's transparent line by line,
which is quite remarkable.
Right. And so, and then with respect to the Treasury, for example, the two main recommendations we suggested, which have now been implemented, was that any payments going out of the Treasury, especially the Treasury's main payment computer, which is called PAM, things like a payments account manager or something like that, but it's like almost $5 trillion a year, so about $1 billion an hour, that the payments be coded with the congressional appropriation, and that there be an explanation for the payment. Very basic stuff. And just doing that, we estimate will save $100 billion a year.
You're not really, let me see if I get this right, particularly with Social Security, you're not really changing policy.
No, yes.
You're auditing the fiscal mechanisms to make sure that, you know, from point A gets to point B, and that's where it's supposed to get to. In some cases, it doesn't get there, or in some cases, it may go over there. But that's it's not a policy exercise. You're not changing laws. You're just doing what any business would do in a profit and loss audit.
I think we're really what we're adding here is caring and competence, and there's a massive amount of fraud of basically people submitting Social Security numbers for Social Security benefits, unemployment, Small Business Administration loans, and medical, where those are fake Social Security numbers, or they're stolen somebody else's Social Security number, and we're trying to put a stop to all of that. And that's the number which is estimated to be on the order of 10% of federal expenditures, which is, you know, half a trillion dollars.
It's a huge number.
Yeah.
You're working with the agency heads. You're working with the cabinet secretaries.
Yes.
I saw Howard Lutnick was on TV yesterday saying you were partnering with them. Is that fair?
Yeah. What we do is in consultation with the cabinet secretaries and with their departments. So we're really trying to be sort of, we'll refer to ourselves as tech support. You know, we're really helping the department get a handle on things, because what actually happens here is you've got this sort of vast federal bureaucracy, and then you've got a very thin layer on top of the politically appointed officials, and what tends to happen is that the bureaucracy, frankly, is in control, and they largely ignore the politically appointed people.
Why should the bureaucracy?
I'm sure you must have seen that.
I've lived with this twice. I worked for Reagan many years ago, and I worked for Trump in the first term.
Yeah.
It's like a permanent bureaucracy. I might add, it's a permanently liberal bureaucracy.
Yes, very much so.
And it doesn't. It's not a bureaucracy that necessarily enforces or implements presidential policy.
They don't. In fact, they try their best to thwart presidential policy. So the president is the elected representative of the people. And if the president cannot get things implemented as a reflection of the will of the people, then what we have is not a democracy, we have a bureaucracy. We have rule of the bureau, not rule of the people. And that's what we're trying to defeat here is the bureaucracy and have rule of the people. You know, and as you mentioned, the bureaucracy is overwhelmingly Democrat. So Washington, D.C. was 92.5%, I believe, voted for Kamala. So this is overwhelmingly a a deep blue situation.
How do you pick your next targeted agency or department?
Well,
What is my fitness connection? It's my lift my mood come true.
We're trying to act broadly across all departments, so it's not just one department at a time.
Are you in all of them now? All of them?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yes. Oh.
We're trying to make the government more efficient across the board. So yeah.
How big's your team?
We're a little over 100 at this point.
100.
Get to 200.
You're going to get to 200.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're recruiting from where? More or less.
Basically, it's software people, information security software people, and finance. It's basically, yeah, finance and technology. I mean, frankly, I can't believe I'm here doing this. It's kind of bizarre, but I kind of think that we've got this enormous federal budget deficit, and it's a $2 trillion deficit. It keeps growing. Our interest payments are higher than our Defense Department budget. That's I think was the real wake-up call for me, was looking at seeing that the interest payments on national debt exceeded the Defense Department budget, and that was only growing over time, which meant if we didn't do something about this, then there won't be any money for anything. We'll just be servicing debt.
And you know how to read an income statement, and you know how to read a balance sheet. You've had some business experience. I'm kidding, but
yeah,
you know about this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, really, I just don't want America to go bankrupt.
So it's a call to action. You're hearing a call to action.
Yeah.
You giving up your other stuff? I mean, how are you running your other businesses?
With great difficulty. Yeah, I mean.
But there's no turning back, you're saying?
I'm just here trying to make government more efficient, eliminate waste and fraud, and so far we're making good progress, actually. So our savings at this point exceed $4 billion a day. Mm-hmm. So it's very significant.
You think you'll wind up getting to $1 trillion?
Yeah.
Of savings?
I mean, unless we're stopped, we will get to $1 trillion of savings.
And that stuff can be translated. I mean, we've been talking. We had Russell Vogt, the OMB director, on earlier, through very Rescission Authority, Impoundment Authority. But I believe you said it earlier. It's an audit that will not gather dust on shelves. This is actually going to wind up with real savings, bend the spending baseline down.
Yeah. There've been many good audits, like I said, done by inspector generals and by Government Accountability Office, and they just haven't been implemented. Nothing's been done. I think the GAO identified that there were 17 million dead people in the Social Security database several years ago. It's now 20 million, but nobody did anything about it. I think we can sort of look at this as a complaint minimization optimization. So basically, if the government sends money out to, whether it's wasteful or fraudulent, nobody complains if they receive money, but they do complain if they don't receive money. And the people that complain the loudest are the ones receiving the fraudulent money.
And you're on it.
Yeah. I mean, so the goal here is let's not have America go bankrupt with waste and fraud. So that's what I'm here for, and we're making good progress.
Yes, you are. You're going to go another year?
Yeah, I think so.
Final report, middle of next year?
Well, we're just getting things done as opposed to writing a report. Like I say, reports don't mean anything. You got to actually take action.
Yes.
So the waste report in entitlement spending, which is which is most of the federal spending is entitlements. So that's like the big one to eliminate. Is that's the sort of $500 billion, maybe $700 billion a year. That is also a mechanism by which the Democrats attract and retain illegal immigrants by essentially paying them to come here, and then turning them into voters.
Yes.
So this is why the Democrats are so upset about the situation, because they're losing. If we turn off this gigantic money magnet for illegal immigrants, then they will leave, and they will lose voters.
But you have president's support. He said so again yesterday. He completely supports your operation.
Yeah. Well, thanks. But that's super. Without the president's support, we couldn't make any progress here. Yeah, I mean, where you'll see the biggest outcry is from the Democrats who are, they don't want the waste and fraud to be turned off because it is a gigantic magnet to attract illegal immigrants and have them stay in the country. And I mean, you see some of the crazy stuff, like where money from FEMA, which is meant, FEMA is an agency that's meant to take care of Americans in distress. And a bunch of their money was being sent to pay for luxury hotels in New York for illegal immigrants. And that was happening even after the president was elected, even after he signed an executive order saying that needs to stop. So we actually made sure that that money did stop going, because obviously it's outrageous that American taxpayer money is spent on luxury hotels for illegals. But you have to say, like, why was that being done? It was because the Democrats are trying to import voters, basically.
Yes. I agree.
Yeah, and that's also why there's no voter ID needed. In fact, in California and New York State, you're not allowed to show voter ID. Doesn't that seem insane?
Insane.
Yeah.
I say that as a New Yorker. It's insane.
Yeah, insane.
And it violates the entire Constitution and the principles behind it.
Yes.
Producers are yelling at me to get out. I don't want to end this interview because it's too much fun.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you one thing, 20 seconds? Nothing to do with DOGE. Can you rescue the astronauts?
Yes, we're bringing them back in a few weeks.
There's not near enough attention being paid to this. You're going to get them back?
We're going to get them back.
There you have it, you guys. So that was Elon Musk, and you heard him talking about all of the stuff going on right now, and we're hearing that today there have been protests. There have been all kinds of stuff against Elon Musk's Tesla operations. We also heard that X today was hit with a cyber attack. You heard him say that it was Ukraine, and also asked, how are you operating all of your businesses while all of this is going on? And he said, look, my goal is just to essentially get in and help the American people by cutting federal mismanagement, government waste, pulling it back in, and getting America on track. Now, let me know, are you glad to see Elon Musk coming in with DOGE, doing audits, somebody holding the federal government accountable for their management of our taxpayer dollars? If yes, put an X for Elon Musk in support. If no, put no. Let me know your thoughts. And you also heard him talk about, I try to put it in the chat there for you, him talking about entitlement programs. And he said that there's so much going on with entitlement programs that take up a huge amount of the spending. And that is Social Security. He's talking about Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all of these items that he said are a part of the entitlements that they need to evaluate. Now, again, Donald Trump, Elon Musk saying they will not be touching the checks of recipients, but they will be going through the administration, and they are going to be slashing where they see that there is wasteful mismanagement and poor spending. They're even saying fraud and corruption. And we've already seen, I think it was just in the past week or so, 7,000 jobs in Social Security cut from the 57,000 that was there. Now we're hearing that they're already at a record low on staffing. And now they're saying that this is going to potentially, we heard the warnings from Martin O'Malley, cause there to be delays in distributions, which is a massive, major claim. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think that there's going to be disruptions or no? Do you think that this is fear-mongering on the part of Martin O'Malley, the Social Security Administration, and Democrats? Maybe they might intentionally do this to say, hey, there are delays because of DOGE and the disruptions to Social Security. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. We will see, but I will keep you up to date. But like I said, a lot unfolding in the last 24 hours. And again, for those of you hopping on just a little bit late here, let's take a look at these headlines once again so you can see them for yourself, as we had Donald Trump coming out and saying, existential threat right now. Trump says, he warns monster nukes could end the world tomorrow, says we have got to get a hold of what is going on in Ukraine and Iran. Trump invites Iranian leaders to talk about a nuclear deal or else. Iranian leaders had rejected Trump's push for nuclear deals. And now we're hearing in the past couple of hours, 3 hours ago, you can see Iran signals openness to talks with the United States. Now, this comes as the market has plummeted today, as Donald Trump said he cannot rule out that we will be entering into recession right now amid the trade tariffs taking place left and right. And like I said, Canada hitting us with more. Ontario slaps 25% tax increase on electrical exports to the United States in a response to Trump's trade wars. And we're hearing Canada is also threatening to just fully cut the United States' imports or exports of electricity into the United States, which they're saying will make it very expensive for certain states. And we are also hearing warnings about lumber and other items as well. So let me know your thoughts. A lot going on, but I will keep you up to speed every step of the way here, so that way you know exactly what is going on. And I see somebody saying that, didn't he condemn those monster nukes? Yes, he is saying, why are we creating more and more new, bigger nukes? He's like, when we already have enough to blow up the world 50, 100 times over. He said we need to come to some sort of an agreement. We need to stop the progression of this nuclear development between the United States, Russia, China. He said we need to get a hold of this so that way we don't have this massive existential threat. So we will see. I will keep you up to date. So if you want to stay up to date on what's going on with these potential wars, we're also hearing trade wars, nuclear developments. If you're concerned about DOGE dividend checks, the economy. Today we saw the stock market tumble. What's going to be happening here with our finances, cryptocurrencies, all of this stuff that's happening around the world. Hit that subscribe button. It's totally free. Why not? Hit that like button. Help spread this particular video out across the YouTube platform so more people can get the latest updates. Also hit the share button. Join the newsletter as well. There's going to be a lot more coming out, especially with Social Security and potential refund checks. Join the newsletter. And also, there was one last thing and I forgot. Daylight savings has got my brain not working correctly. Oh, also, I was just going to say thank you to the new members hitting the join button. I appreciate the monthly contributions. Not necessary, but greatly appreciated. As a result, when you hit that join button and become a member, you will see all of the articles, resources that I cite also pop up in your feed as well. Just a little additional thank you. And thank you for all the super chats. I see you, Honest One, $5 super chat. What happened, y'all? I thought Trump was going to fix everything. Laughing out loud. Praise Jesus and repent now. Yeah, we will see. And you heard him say, hey, I've only been in office for a month. It takes a little while. He said we need some transition time. So we will see. But like I said, I'll keep you guys up to speed every step of the way. But that is the latest. Thank you so much for joining me. Hit that like button, subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one. Take care. God bless.